Before we get into the episode, I am thrilled to announce that the EntreMD Business School is open for enrollment. The EntreMD Business School is the only school of its kind for physicians who want to build 6, 7, and multiple 7-figure businesses. Over the last 2 years, we have had hundreds of doctors go through the school with unbelievable results. Some of them run brands, some of them run private practices, some of them are coaches, some have other kinds of service-based businesses or product-based businesses. And we've had people come in and cross the 6-figure milestone, cross the 7-figure milestone, cross the multiple 7-figure milestone. You will be in a place where you'll get the coaching, the community, the accountability that you need to thrive as an entrepreneur, especially in the times that we're in. So maybe you've been following me for a while. Maybe you've been getting so much out of the EntreMD podcast and you've been wondering, how can I work with Dr. Una and the community more? Well, this is your chance. Come join us in the EntreMD Business School. It is application only. So go to entremd.com/business to turn in your application. I cannot tell you how many doctors have made statements like this. I recovered my investment in the first week. I recovered my investment in my bank account in the first 90 days. This is the best investment I've made in myself ever. I want you to have that kind of story, not just a story of building a great business that serves a lot and earns a lot, but having a business that gives you the freedom to live life on your terms. So don't wait any longer. entremd.com/business. And now for the episode. Hi docs, welcome to the EntreMD Podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you embrace entrepreneurship so you can have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on your terms. I'm your host, Dr. Una. Welcome back to the EntreMD Podcast. You are in for a treat today. But before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge some wonderful members of the EntreMD tribe that left a review for me on iTunes. So Dr. Jennifer Variste says, inspiring and motivating. Dr. Una shares her story while motivating you to believe you can do the same thing. She inspires docs to aspire for more than the 4 walls of clinical medicine. This is a great podcast for docs who want to take back control of their careers. Thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer. This is so amazing. And this is the reason why I do this. I want to inspire. I want to help. I want to motivate doctors to take back control of their careers, build businesses, build profitable businesses so they can have freedom. I think we work too hard to not have freedom. But thank you so much for leaving this review. And if you're here listening to this podcast and you're like, this has been amazing for me, I want you to hit the subscribe button. I want you to take a moment or two to write a review as well. You never know. You could be the next shout out. So today we are going to be talking about how to use a good virtual assistant to make your business more profitable. Now listen, in 2019, one of the biggest mistakes I made was I tried to do everything by myself. Like, I kid you not. When I think about it, I'm like, Dr. Una, what is wrong with you? So I did all of my social media myself. I did all my client emails myself. I did the research myself. I booked locations for events by myself. I set up my courses by myself. Now, the thing is, I love learning new things. I love the challenges. So I probably had a little bit of fun doing all these things. But the truth of the matter is there are some core things that only I should do. And if I want to be super productive, I need to focus and do those things. So when I did EntreMD Live, oh my goodness. Now, don't get me wrong. I had some wonderful people helping me, like Makita, like my media person, Obi. I had a number of people helping me, but there's so much more that I could have taken off my plate. So EntreMD Live was June 2019. It was an amazing conference. We talked all things business of medicine. And as a result of that event, I got to work with a really good group of doctors who started businesses, scaled businesses, did all kinds of fun stuff. It was so amazing. But the process of setting that up, I did that all by myself. I did all the social media. I did my own lead pages. I did, I kept my eyes on the sales and the follow-up emails and all of that. And I mean, it makes no sense, right? that was my biggest mistake. Now, I'm not saying I'm living in regret or anything. If you met me, I've chosen to enjoy my life, but it would make no sense to repeat this in 2020, right? So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the way I've looked at this and the way I've restructured myself for 2020, even though I'm starting right away, and what I want you to start thinking about no matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey. So one of the things that will impact my business the most in 2020 is that I am going to focus on the things that have these things all in common. Number one, I'm great at them. Number two, I love doing them. And number three, multiplies the impact of my business the most, okay? Everything else is going to be delegated. And you should be thinking about doing the same thing. So think about it. You only have 24 hours in a day. The only way to get more out of your day is to maximize the use of the time you have and use other people's time as well. Now, you're going to have to pay them for said time, but you want to start using other people's time, leverage other people's time so that you can get more done. So it was Brian Tracy that I heard say this thing. And the first time I heard it, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't think I could do that. He says, take your hourly wage and be clear on what that number is and determine to only do activities that will produce that much revenue. So the bottom line is, if you're a doctor and you're earning $250,000, a year, it comes to about 120 there, about an hour. I mean, you have a whole package, so it's not exactly that, but let's just use that number, right? $120 an hour. The idea is you should only be doing tasks that would pay you $120 an hour. So there are so many things that somebody earning $10 an hour, $15 an hour could do. You can delegate those. You don't need to be doing them. That's the thought process. And that's one of the, things that the most successful people would do is they're very conscientious about their time. Like, am I using it right? Is this the best use of my time? Is this something that I could pay somebody to do? So let me take a moment and unpack that a little bit. So let's say you have a side business, and part of what you have to do is you have to send a lot of emails back and forth, clients and stuff like that. And you earn $120 an hour, but those emails are things that you can have an assistant who would love to be hired by you for $15 or $20 an hour. What if you had them work an hour a day or 5 hours a week or so, and you paid them $15 an hour to take care of all that stuff? Your emails will all be done. Nothing will fall through the cracks. And you didn't have to do them. And especially if it's something you think about and you have palpitations because you're like, I just flat out don't want to do this. They take that stress off your plate as well. And if you pay them $15 an hour for those 5 hours, it comes to $75, which you can easily afford if this is something that is producing you money. So you get rid of the stress, and it gives you time to focus on the things that only you can do. So you want to start looking at your time that way. You want to start looking at the opportunity costs. Yes, I can manage all my social media. Yes, I can create all my graphics on Canva. Yes, I can create all my lead pages. Yes, I can do all those things, but at what cost, right? Because you only have 24 hours and you do not have enough time in the day to do all the things that you want to do. So for you to choose to do something, you're choosing not to do something else. So the question becomes, what is that something else you're choosing not to do? Is it worth it? All right. So we need to start looking at our time differently. And that is something that I'm really going to give a lot of attention to in 2020. So when I think about EntreMD, which is, the platform where we help physicians create profitable businesses, what is my area of focus? What are the 3 main things that I, and probably only I, can do? Content creation would be one, like, doing the podcast and, YouTube videos and writing blog pieces maybe. And all those things, who else can do that? That's kind of my job, right? So content creation is one. Speaking is the second one, and coaching is the third one. Those are things that I'm great at. I love doing. I really love doing. And it multiplies the impact of my business. I'm able to touch more people. You guys know about my BHAG, right? I'm trying to help 80,000 doctors do this. So it helps me. It helps me get towards my goal. So you want to think about that for you. What is that? What are those 3 things that should be your area of focus so that you can start delegating the other things that maybe you don't have to do, right? So what are those areas for you? So let's get right into the meat of it. So 7 things a virtual assistant can do for you. Now, let me stop here and give a little bit of a caveat, if you will. If you've never done any of these things, like you're still in idea phase, it might be worthwhile to get your hands wet with a little bit of it, because if you've done it, then you can direct better. If you've done it, you've created a style, a language. Your thing has a voice. So, your assistant knows what to follow, knows what to model after. So if you're just brand spanking new, there's some things you can use your assistant to do, but you really want to, take the time to kind of do some of this stuff yourself so you can say, this is what I want it to look like. Okay. So I just thought I should throw that out there. All right. Now, the other thing I want to throw in is that your virtual assistant has to be an investment, not an expense. So what that means is you don't want to get an assistant and have them do a lot of cute things that don't add to your bottom line. They don't add to your overall goals. So they're really, like, in the grand scheme of events, it didn't matter. You want to have your eyes on the prize at all points in time. And what your virtual assistant is doing should be setting that person up to get paid as well, right? So maybe not in the very beginning. Maybe you may have some upfront costs. I don't know why that was hard to say. But at the same time, you want to make sure that what your virtual assistant is doing is directly impacting your bottom line, so that the person's pay is coming from what they did and not from your savings. Okay. All right. So eyes on the prize at all times. So the first thing they can do is email management, especially if you have a business email. So maybe not your personal email. They can, but for starters, maybe your business email. Can they handle it? Yes. If you're overwhelmed by your email, if you're having email fall through the cracks, if you remember your email and your heart skips, if you have 2,000 unread emails, then a virtual assistant will probably be great. You can have templates. You can have templates of, if somebody's calling asking about my service, if someone is emailing me asking about my services, this is a standard response. If somebody's asking if I can speak at their event, this is a somewhat standard response. Or you can have them reach out to you, whichever. But those are things they can respond to. If you are I would be scheduling guests on my podcast, the back and forth with that, I can have a virtual assistant do that. I have coaching clients. We have to, work the calendar and choose dates when they'll come on their calls and all of that stuff. That's something a virtual assistant can help me do. Even setting the rules for the emails, scheduling some emails so they're going out when they're supposed to go. You can have a virtual assistant help you do that. Okay. And it takes away a lot of pressure, a lot of pain. Okay. All right. So that's one of the things that's going to be happening. The second thing is research. So again, I'm going to be using myself, and then you can adapt this. So maybe I'm like, every month I would love to be a guest on a podcast, right? And I can have them do the research. These are the kind of podcasts that I want to be on, podcasts that physician entrepreneurs are listening to, and they can do the research and say, these are the top 20 we found. And because they're managing my email now, right? They can send the pitch email to say, this is who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I, talk about. And this is how I can serve your audience. And they can take take care of that process. Stages that I would want to speak on, they could do the research. I can give them parameters. These are the times I'm, available. These are the kind of events that I want to be speaking at, and they can do the research and come up with, hey, these are, 30 stages that would be great for you. And then we can start the process of elimination. But all those hours of looking for it, I don't have to do it. They can do it, right? Maybe I want to do an event, and, they could look for, possible locations where I can use for my event. Maybe I have vendors and they can do some price comparisons and stuff. Maybe I have quotes like, I remember this quote and all this stuff. I don't remember who said it and whatever. I can type those, up, and I'm like, here, and they can go, fact check. You know what I'm saying? And that's stuff that we spend hours doing. But remember, if you're doing 120 an hour or 200 an hour or whatever, is that the best use of your time? Or could you pay somebody else to do that? All right. So that's the second thing that, you can use a virtual assistant for, that I would be using a virtual assistant for. The third thing is calendar management. Now, I'm going to tell you something funny. I remember reading about someone who's like, oh, I need an assistant to manage my calendar. And I'm like, what can possibly be on your calendar? And I'm like, I'm a doctor. I work 60 hours a week and I have all this other stuff going on. And the calendar is not that complicated. I don't understand what you mean. Now my calendar is complicated, right? Because there's all kinds of meetings from the different businesses that I run. And then I have my coaching clients, and I have my group clients. And, maybe I'm interviewing a doctor for my new practice, my old practice, and all this stuff. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what day of the week it is and where I'm supposed to be. So to have somebody take all of that information, put it on a calendar, color code it, and that way I can take one look at something. I know where I need to be, kind of get a feel for what the month looks like. And then I can take another look day by day. That is just fantastic. And that is something that it's wonderful to have, but I don't have to do it myself, right? And then so that way when I get excited, I'm like, oh yeah, of course I can do lunch with you by 2:00. I can look at my calendar, which is, also connected to my phone, and go like, yeah, but I don't have that time to do it. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe we have to do emails back and forth to see where I'll be, where I would have to, put that meeting on my calendar. And then guess what? That the emails back and forth will be done by my virtual assistant. Do you see what I'm saying? So yay, calendar management. So if you have a ton of stuff going on and you want to be able to use your time better, then a virtual assistant would be great. So that's number 3. Number 4, repurpose your content. Oh my goodness. All right. So I believe at this point, that it's a crime to have one piece of content. It could be a video, it could be a podcast, it could be a blog post. I think it's a disservice for you to create that content and it only shows up in one way, right? Your content should be repurposed, but it's a lot of work to do that, and you can pay somebody to do that. So I can give you an example with this podcast, right? So we create this podcast and we can repurpose it many different ways. For instance, I can create a 2-minute audiogram that takes 2 minutes out of this content and makes a little audiogram so it looks like a post, but it has a little wavy thing, right? So it lets you know this is audio, and I can post that at a different time on Facebook. I can take this same podcast episode and convert it into a blog post. Could take this same episode and pull out some quotable quotes from it, right? And pull out some quotable quotes from it, and those will be image posts. And the list goes on and on and on. So taking that content and multiplying it, amplifying it, is great, and it gives you a huge return on investment, and it amplifies your voice and it gets your message out to more people, but it takes a lot of time. So if it's something that you want to do consistently, if you're a content creator, then one of the best things you can do is get a virtual assistant who can do that, okay? So repurpose your content. Don't write one blog piece and let it die. Don't do one podcast episode and let it die. You let it live on by repurposing it. All right. And maybe you don't have the skills, you don't have the time, or you don't have the interest. Either way, get somebody to take care of it. Number five is social media management. Now, as an entrepreneur, right? As an entrepreneur, you should be thinking about return on investment when you use social media. So social media should be strategic. It should be done on purpose, and it should be done consistently. In the beginning of your business, you're really finding your voice, finding your message, testing who your ideal client is. So I really recommend that you do your social media to some extent by yourself, because you're having conversations, right? You just don't want to have a pretty page, right? You don't want to have a pretty page with no engagement. You don't want to have a pretty page that's not advancing your message or cause, not bringing you in new clients. That's not what you want. You want to get your message out. Now, after you kind of have a little bit of a feel for your voice, for your message, for your languaging, for your calls to action and all of that stuff, it's time to build a system around it, right? So social media, this is how we play it out. These are what kind of posts go out on, different days and all of that stuff. Once you build a system, and don't make this complicated. When I say system, I'm not talking about, something really serious that the CIA would do. I mean, like, you just have to have, Monday, maybe these kind of posts, Tuesday, these kind of posts would go with these kind of call to action, like simple, it could be rudimentary stuff that you wrote on a legal pad. Don't make it complicated. But once you have some kind of system, then you can hand that system to somebody, and that person can help make sure that your social media content is consistent and, it's going out on time, and the languaging and the focus and the branding and all of that stays the same. You can delegate that. And I think that would be a huge time saver. And if you run a business, I think that's something that you should seriously consider. So I'm going to be doing that. Okay. The sixth is data management. So you've had all these clients, people who've checked you out, people you've had conversations with, and you don't have one place where you store all that data. So you want to have that, and you want to have somebody who manages it, right? So that you can keep in touch with your clients and continue to serve them, and, continue to help them with your, valuable content. And if you have programs that would help them, you have a place where you can put out that information. So they have the option of, signing up and stuff like that. So, like CRM, stuff like that. You want to have someone manage your data, put it all together, and, kind of clean everything up. The seventh thing is a newsletter. And I'm of the opinion that every doctor in the process of building up their personal physician brand, it would be great to have a newsletter. You're an internal medicine doc, and maybe your thing is obesity, and you constantly talk about intermittent fasting, and you talk about a plant-based diet and exercise and all of that stuff. Whether you're employed or not, nothing stops you from having a newsletter and have people sign up and all that stuff, because you need to have a tribe. You need to, you need to touch people, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And imagine what it would be like if you can kind of like maybe, open up your phone, create a voice memo. This is what I want my newsletter, the content of my newsletter to be. And then your virtual assistant can take that and write it out to a really nice, clean newsletter, blog post, whatever. But, that way you can have a newsletter that's going out. You can start off every month and maybe, every week, because that could morph into a different business, right? So your virtual assistant can handle that. So you don't have to do that. Just, pick up your phone, open the voice memo, and record, and they can make it out into something nice, that's easy on the eye, and, is worded properly and all of that stuff. So these are 7 things that a virtual assistant can do for you. And the beautiful things, you don't have to have space to hire them and keep them in your office or your home. You don't have to deal with W-2s and stuff like that, depending on how you set it up. But I think if you are crunched for time and you're overwhelmed, and you're an entrepreneur, then you want to consider this, okay? We can talk about, how to find this person and all of that in a different episode, but I want you to start thinking about this, okay? And I want you to start from somewhere and scale. Maybe all you need is someone who can do some research for you, manage your calendar, manage your email, repurpose a little bit of your content. Maybe you want to get them on for, 10 hours a month, and that comes to $200 a month. But I want you to think about it. If someone can manage your email, do your research, manage your content, and maybe write you a newsletter, and they can do that in 10 hours, even if it's 15 hours a month, and you're paying them $300 a month, how much peace of mind? That's like free, right? Because the peace of mind that comes from that, So whether you're a startup and you're really small, you can delegate. You can start off with 10 hours. You can start off with 5 hours, but you want to start thinking that way. Leverage other people's time is one of the things that very successful people do. So whether you're a startup or you're established or you're a veteran, I want you to start, and you can start from somewhere and scale up. One of the things that held me back the most was, I have to get the whole system for everything that I want them to do and all that stuff. And truthfully, I could have started with email, calendar, research, and maybe a newsletter. And then I could have increased their hours and their responsibilities from there. So if you are in a position where you're overwhelmed at all with what you have to do, I want you to start. Start with 5 hours. Start with 10 hours. It's $200. I mean, that's a pair of shoes, girls. Okay, so so what did I do? After this discovery and after what they can do, I figured out what they could do for me and how I need to be, focused on 3 things: content creation, speaking, and coaching. I hired a virtual assistant. I actually hired a social media manager and a virtual assistant, so my social media person can focus on that and the graphics and all of that stuff. And they start January the 1st, so we're just working systems and all that, at this point. And I will be doing an update podcast after the first quarter to let you know how it goes. But I really did a good job of hiring, so this is going to be fantastic. And I'm going to be able to give you so much more value, serve you at a higher level, because I've gotten some of these other stuff off my plate. Okay. So this is what I want to do. You need to do 3 things for what you just learned to change you. Okay. So 3 things. Hearing this is not enough. So I have homework for you. So number 1, I want you to teach it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a snapshot, just take a screenshot of the episode, and I want you to post that along with what you learned on your social media channels. So Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I want you to tag EntreMD. So hashtag EntreMD, okay? So you're going to teach it, all right? The second thing you're going to do is you're going to apply something. You don't have to apply all 7, but you need to do something, all right? So you're going to commit to do something. That could be to research what, virtual assistant you're going to use, or to define what they could do for you, or to finally bite the bullet and hire somebody. But I want you to apply something. Anything, something. Maybe you already have a virtual assistant, but there's something on your plate that you've been doing that they could do. So get it off your plate. Maybe you haven't defined what your 3 areas are. What are my 3 highest, the 3 activities I do with the highest return on investment that only I could do, right? Define what that is so you know what's left and what you need to delegate. The third thing is, I want you to stay connected. Stay connected with people just like you who are doing the same thing. So I want you to join the private Facebook community for EntreMD, right? So go to EntreMD.com/join, all right? And be part of the family. So thank you so much for listening. I want you to let me know what helped. Let me know what stood out to you. Let me know how this made a difference, okay? Because I am doing this for you. And if you're like, oh my goodness, I wish she would talk about this, I want you to post it on your social media social media channel and tag me, or post it in the Facebook group. I will create a whole segment just for you because I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to keep you inspired to build those businesses that will give you the freedom to live life and practice medicine on your own terms. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week. If you love this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, share, and review it on iTunes. As you go about your week, remember, you're not just an MD, you're an EntreMD. Don't forget to tune in next week for another great episode. Until next time.